Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization, building your first beginner program. Video number 3, please watch the others. This one is on how to progress. First is the starting point. We already covered this in the first and second videos. After your first week of training, it's critically important that you get through that because then you have a baseline. You've done one challenging set per exercise. You've written down the weights and reps that were challenging for that one working set. Now, the question we're going to answer in this entire video is, what do you do next week? Okay. And this same question will be answered very similarly in most future weeks because it's kind of a progression formula. You apply it to any one week, it designs the next week of training for you. Then you apply it to that next week, it designs the next one, and so on and so forth. This way, you get great training tailored exactly to your body's needs and responses. Because someone could for sure just write like a 4-week program for you all at once, front end, but they don't know if you're getting stronger or need more volume or not quite keeping up. So every single time you write a good program, it has to be updated week after week after week. All right, so we got through that. We're talking about adding weight and reps over time, but a really good question is why? And there's 2 fundamental good reasons why this is something that is required for optimum gains. First, fact number 1 is that the best size and strength increases occur when the training is hard. Okay, if you're doing a set and you stop, let's say at 10 reps, and you could have done 5 more reps, no problem. So let's say you could have done 15 if you had to. Anything with 5 more reps in the tank is just not very stimulative. Now, it still causes results. It'll still, for a little while anyway, cause increases in size and increases in strength, but just not anything to write home about, and you're just wasting a whole lot of time. So training has to be hard to give you the best adaptations. And here's the thing. As you train, you get 2 things. Stronger, so you can lift more weight, and more muscularly endurant, so you can do more reps with the same weight. And if that thing happens over and over and over, you get stronger, you get more endurant, you get stronger, you get more endurant, but you never actually increase the number of reps or the load on the bar, the weight, then what ends up happening is your training starts hard, but then session after session after session, it degrades to where it's not hard anymore. If you simply adjusted, usually up, increasing the reps or increasing the weight every week or so, before your sets got too easy, you could always keep them maximally stimulative and get all the best results. So in this situation, we want to add weight and or reps to keep the training hard so that we're never having workouts where we look back and we're like, yeah, that was way too easy and it was kind of a bit of a wasted workout. We're going to be a little bit more proactive to make sure that every workout is nice and tough, but not so proactive that we get carried away and we can't complete these workouts anymore. All right, convinced, fine. Adding weight and reps is a good idea. But the next question is, when is it a good idea to add weight and or reps? Okay, so there is a rule for when you can add weight. Okay, you can add weight to the last week's exercise if you got more than 5 reps last week. Okay, so if your challenging set had to end at 4 reps and you had to rack the weight, do not add weight. Just add reps because the 5 to 10 range is where we want to be. So if you got more than 5 reps last week and your technique was never compromised at that number of reps when the reps got hard. If your technique was compromised and you still add weight, what do you think is going to happen next week? It's going to be even more challenging. The technique is going to get even worse, and then you just be doing a whole lot of nothing. You start with very full, deep squats, and then towards the end of the month, because you keep adding weight for no damn reason, even though your technique isn't stable, you're doing these weird half squats and grinding, and your knees are coming in, and someone's like, why are you using that much weight? And you're like, progressive overload, but you didn't even do the technique right. If you do the technique right, and you never really falter, and you do more than 5 repetitions, you can add weight. You have earned the right to add weight. But if your technique still sucks, guess what? You're going to repeat that same weight next week for the same number of reps and demonstrate excellent technique for every single rep. And if you do that, then the week after, you can add some weight to the bar. So you have to earn those weight additions. Similar thing with the reps. You can add reps to last week's effort. Let's say you did 95 pounds for 9 last week. You can do it for 10 this time if 2 things occur. First, you got between 5 and 9 reps last week. Okay. Technically speaking, under 5 reps is fine too, but you shouldn't be getting under 5 reps. If you got 4 reps, definitely adding a rep is totally fine. You shouldn't have gotten 4, should have gotten at least 5 or changed the load right there and then. But if you got 9 reps last week, you can add a rep and go to 10. But generally speaking, if you got 10 reps, you're not going to add a rep because that takes you out of your rep range. Then you go to 11. So if you get between 5 and 9, you can add a rep. If you get 10, then it's time to add load, right? And of course, just the same as with weight, your technique was never compromised. Okay, so if you got 8 reps last week, you think, ooh, I need to add a rep. But rep number 8 was like iffy. And rep number 9 that you tried, the technique was really off, so you didn't even count it. Just do 8 again. And then if you do 8 next week with the same load, and your technique is really spot on, the week after that, you can add 1 or 2 reps after, right? So if you do more than 10 reps and your technique is solid, like 10 reps or more, then for sure add weight next week. If you get between 5 and 9 reps and your technique is solid, you can add weight or reps or both. And if your technique breaks down, and this is super important, if your technique breaks down, in the 5 to 10 rep range, do not add weight or reps for next week. You just shoot to match the same set you got last time with meh technique. And the next time you come in next week, you match that same load and same repetition number, but with good technique. And if you can do that good technique, then next week, you can use that same formula to add reps and or weight, so on and so forth. Now, of course, we have to answer the important question of how much weight do we add if we're adding weight, and how many reps do we add if we're adding reps? Err on the side of less is a good idea because you can always do more later. And if you do too much, it causes a lot of fatigue. It causes some injuries with technique, nothing you want. So err on the side of less, but don't be too shy. Generally speaking, for beginners, adding, if your technique was good and you feel like you have more reps in the tank or an ability to lift more weight, then you can add between roughly 2.5% to 5% to your last week's load. Right? So which means if you lifted 100 pounds, you can comfortably probably lift 105 next week. Okay. And this is true for almost every situation for beginners, except for if you're doing 10 reps and there's really no difficulty in sight, you should probably add more weight. So for example, if you do 100 pounds and your 10th rep looks like that, you don't go up to 105 because that's just going to be super easy also. Maybe you can go up to 110 or 115. Be easy, but add a little more in that regard. Use your best judgment for what will be nice and challenging in the 5 to 10 rep range. Next question is how many reps to add, usually just 1 or 2. If you're so strong in that movement and so endurant that you probably need more than 1 to 2 reps added to a set to make it challenging. So for example, if you did 5 and you stopped at 5 and you were like, dude, next week I'm going to be able to hit at least 8 with this level of difficulty. Don't just go to 8 reps. Don't add 3. Add some load and maybe some reps as well. So only add 1 or 2 reps at a time and let load make up the other additions if you're progressing that quickly. So feel free to pause this and take a look at this just sample of what's going on. Notice it's not Monday, Wednesday, Friday anymore like it was earlier in the last videos. This sample is just Monday week 1, week 2, and week 3 to show you that progression. And of course, this will work in almost the same way for Wednesday and Friday and so on and so forth. So we notice here that we did a really good job in week 1, and every single one of the working sets was rated as pretty tough. Okay, pretty tough is awesome. It means we got a great stimulus, and because it was well within our abilities and our technique was good, we can add load and or reps. And what ends up happening is in Monday of week 2, we did add load and or reps for every single one of those lifts, and a few things happened. Essentially, one of 3 things happened. One, as you can see with that Monday week 2 squat, that first exercise, 95 for 9 reps, it is actually pretty easy. And if something's pretty easy, next time we add probably load and reps. And what you can see, Monday week 3, squat is 105 pounds, 10 more pounds, and it's 10 reps, 1 more rep. Because when something's pretty easy, you add some load and some reps or a lot of load. The other option, it will go down 3 exercises to incline bench press, 95 for 9 reps on that Monday week 2. We got 95 pounds for 9 reps, and oops, that was pretty easy. Sorry, let's go down to lateral raise, 15 pounds for 8 reps. Okay, last time we did lateral raise, it was 15 pounds for 6 reps. It was pretty tough, so we added 2 reps, and it was pretty tough again. Change nothing, that's perfect. Next week, just add a bit of load and a bit of reps just like normal. And as you can tell in week 3, lateral raise gets 15 pounds for 10 reps. Pretty tough at 8, we go to 10, no big deal. Now, There's another option, and you can see it's in bold. Hamstring curls, we did 60 pounds for 8 reps last time, so week 1. Then in week 2, we did 60 pounds for 9 reps, but our technique was compromised. That 9 reps was meh, and we're not going to take full credit for that, and we're certainly not going to add load and not going to add reps. So then in week 3 for hamstring curls, you see it's still 60 pounds, still for 9 reps, but this time we fixed the technique and it's rated as pretty tough. So that week 4 for hamstring curls would probably be like 65 pounds for 9 reps, or maybe 60 pounds for 10 reps, or some combination of the two. That's how progression works. It's really super straightforward, and it's not that complicated. But it can take a little time to get used to it. So here's a sample. Give it a look. See what you think. Now, that's for adding load and for adding reps to make each set individually challenging enough. So why would we ever want to add sets? Because adding sets is a part of the progressive process. It turns out that one work set is usually great for a week or two, but in order to grow the most, we have to push our limits a little bit. There is a way of doing even very hard sets that if you do so few of them, your body's not receiving as much strength and muscle growth stimulus as it could with just more reps. Kind of the analogy here is like, no matter how amazing a piece of food tastes, if you get as you get to be a better cook, whatever, like say you're making an egg roll, your first egg roll, it's really a C+ experience. Your third, fourth, fifth, sixth egg roll that you make, these are different times that you're cooking, are better. Like you enhance the recipe a bit, the skin is a little crispier, so on and so forth. It starts to be a tastier egg roll, which is awesome. But if you're hungry, one egg roll just might not do it. And especially if you're, say, gaining mass and you're getting bigger and you're getting hungrier because you're now a larger person, it used to be that you could eat one egg roll and be totally straight. But, sometime down the line, it doesn't matter how great that one egg roll tastes. You want more than one. I mean, you may not want 5 right at the same time, but maybe you experiment with 2 to see if that fills, the deep bottomless pit of egg roll desire in your soul. We all have one of those. And if you don't like egg rolls, don't comment, don't like, just unfollow, get the fuck out of here. We don't need you. It's not just un-American for you not to like egg rolls. It's unworldly and inhuman. But in any case, how do you know if you're not doing enough work, enough sets, or if you're doing too much? Let's talk about the top end first. What is too many sets? It's actually pretty easy to define. It's if your performance has not gone up or has even gone down and you're tired. You're doing bent rows and let's say it's 3 or 4 sets each time. Next week is hard. And then you actually stop getting stronger and you start to get weaker. That probably means that you're doing too many sets. Your body can only recover from so much. This is still further corroborated by the fact that you're still sore. So if Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you do some kind of back movement, and all those days you're still sore in your back when you're trying to train it again, not a good sign. Definitely don't go up in sets then. But there's a bottom end to where things are too easy and you probably benefit from doing more sets. And that really is what happens when you're just not challenging the body systems hard enough. For example, performance never even degrades within a session, which means that you did a set of 10 and it was like, whee, and you're done. And then let's say you have 2 sets that day, you do another set of 10, there's still 10, still the same load. And you're like, dude, I can just keep doing sets of 10 forever. If the volume is challenging, if it's enough sets to really challenge you, you need to feel degraded after the actual muscle group you've trained. So you've done bent rows. You need to be, after you put down the bar, be like, oh, okay, like I'm feeling it. Right? If you're like, man, I'm totally good, I can just keep going, you probably need more sets as long as the sets are hard. And even one hard set at the beginning of your journey can really mess you up. You'll notice that true beginners, when you give them the first hard set of squats, their legs get wobbly and they're like, holy crap, that was tough. And you feel like, hey, can you just keep going? They're like, I don't know. Then that's it. One set is good, which is why we start with one set anyway. But if you train 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, one set of squats maybe just be like, oh, that was really good. Can you do more? Like, yeah, no problem. That wasn't really tiring. And then more is probably a good idea. Another one is if you barely have a pump in the target muscle. Like if you're really new to lifting and you do a set of 10 in the curl, you're like, holy crap, my biceps, they feel like they're filled with fluid. Cool. A few weeks after training, one set isn't going to pump you up that much. And if it gives you almost no pump at all, it's probably time to increase the number of sets. And this isn't something you can tell in the session, but you can tell between sessions. If there's 0 or very limited soreness, or soreness that goes away super quick, then you can probably recover from more and benefit from more. So if you do your first set of squats ever and you get sore for 2 or 3 days, holy shit, like you did something. You don't need any more sets. But if weeks later you do your one set of squats and you just don't ever get sore at all, not later that day, not the day after, nothing, then you can probably get away with doing more and still benefiting because clearly your body can recover well from that effort. So when to add sets, you definitely just want to stay away from that very bottom limit of too easy because it's just not maximally productive. So you add sets if the exercise, the sets or set you did of the exercise never really felt exhausting, never really felt tiring. You felt you could have keep going forever, doing more and more sets. You never really got a pump or much of a pump, and or the soreness of that muscle healed well ahead of your next session. So for example, if you train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, by the time you get to Wednesday, your legs should have healed for Wednesday, and that's really good. But if your legs never got sore or just healed Monday night, and then all of Tuesday you spent sitting around being like, I could be training legs right now because they're healed, but I'm doing nothing, then it may be a good idea to add a set, right? If you're not sure, if you're like, that was kind of challenging, I don't know, usually the best default is to not add a set. You can always add one later. Overtraining is probably worse than undertraining. Undertraining, you still get some benefits. Overtraining, everything starts to go to hell and you have to deload and all this fatigue stuff. We'll get to that later, but it's all just a big giant mess. If you are pretty sure you need more sets, you're like, okay, honestly, this is not that challenging, then add, but just one set per session per week. So if you did one set of bent rows, 3 weeks later, you decide to add sets, don't go to 3 or 4. Just do 2 sets of bent rows. And if it's again too easy in the next week, then go 3, then go 4, then go 5, so on and so forth. So here's a sample of when to add sets. So we're doing this kind of sample program here. And it's our same program, and you'll notice it's Monday, and it's weeks 1, 2, and 3, which is pretty straightforward. And week 1, we just execute the plan. Week 2, we've of course made some rep and load adjustments, but it's still one set of everything, okay? And then in week 2, we look at how we're doing, and we rate it on pump, fatigue, and soreness. So for example, squats, 95 pounds for 9 reps, in week 2 was pretty easy. And check this out. Gave us very little pump, very little intra-session fatigue. Like after squats, we're like, whatever, we could just keep going. And it created very little soreness from last week. Because remember, you need to analyze last week. So that's 95 pounds for 7 last week on Monday. Did not really affect Wednesday. And you were already healed. So this time, you know almost for sure it's not going to affect the next week. So you have to make some changes. So as you can see in week 3, because there was a very little bit of a pump and clearly it was underwhelming, instead of doing 1 set of squats in week 3, we do 2 sets of squats. We add a whole different set at the same load and whatever rep number gives us a challenge. That's it. So we add a set just like that. You'll notice, for example, for hamstring curls, in week 2, never mind our technique got compromised, but we got a good pump, notable intra-session fatigue, and barely healed soreness last week that we tried this. Like last time we did this on Monday, by Wednesday when we had to train hamstrings again, we're still kind of either barely healed or a little bit under-healed, actually some soreness left. That's why if you look at hamstring curls in week 3, it's still just 1 set because clearly that was enough. Simple formula, and you can just keep using it the entire time you're progressing because like, look, if it wasn't enough, you add a set. If it was plenty and everything's fine, don't add a set. It's really just that simple. So TLDR, quick summary, you want to start your first week with just 1 challenging set. Write down your weight and reps. Next week, you add load and reps in order to keep the sets challenging, and you want to see how much fatigue, pump, and soreness these sets generate. In week 3+, you of course, as usual, add load and or reps to keep the sets challenging. That's a separate process. And you add sets to the exercises that were clearly low on fatigue, pump, and soreness generation. If it just wasn't enough, you add a set to those. And for the exercises that were totally fine and were stimulate enough, you don't add anything. And you just repeat that same process all the time until you're too fatigued to continue. What does it mean to be too fatigued to continue? How can you tell? And what do you do about it? That's for the next video, which is all about taking fatigue and bringing it down so you can create the space for another productive run at progression and get all those great results you're looking for. Folks, tune in next week to find out what that's all like.